Hello, beautiful people, and welcome. In this video, we are factoring trinomials when your A, your leading coefficient, is 1. As always, if I make a mistake, please let me know where the mistake occurs so that way we all can learn from it. I did pre-write some of the steps, so feel free to pause this video as many times as you need to write these steps down. If you're in my class, you will be referencing these steps in class, so make sure you have this cheat sheet available to you. So step number 1 is always to factor out your GCF. That should be just without thinking, that should be your first step always. Make sure that if you do have a greatest common factor, you include it in your answer. Sometimes we forget. Don't forget, write it in an answer bubble immediately so that way you don't forget. Step number 2 is identify the leading coefficient. Is the first coefficient that you see attached to the highest exponent, so in our case the exponent is 2, is it 1 or is it missing? Is it not there? Is it 1? If it is, then we're going to do the following. If it is not, if it's 2, 3, 4, 1/2, it doesn't matter what it is. If it is not 1, that's a separate video, and we will do a diamond method or a slip and divide. In my class, I prefer the slip and divide method. However, I do have videos on the diamond method. Since we are doing a video here on when our leading coefficient is 1, let's go ahead and assume the leading coefficient is 1. For example, here, x squared minus 4x minus 5. Notice I already pre-highlighted that there is no number in front of x squared. That means it is 1, but mathematicians are lazy, and so we don't actually write 1 there. Once you have identified that the leading coefficient is in fact 1, you're going to draw a large X. Sometimes this is called a diamond method. In our class, we're going to call this method guess and check. So for the guess and check method, you're going to draw a pretty large X. It doesn't have to be massive, just enough for you to do things inside of it. On the very top, you're going to multiply your leading coefficient. In this case, it's 1. And then you're going to multiply it by your C, which in this case is the constant. Since A is 1, you're just going to take the constant. There are other methods that you will see when A is not 1 that we need to include it. So just put your constant in here. Make sure to put your little dot here so you know that in fact we will be multiplying things in this little section. Right underneath it, we're going to put a plus here for addition, and you're going to be writing the B number. So whatever that middle term number, the numeric of it, that's what we're going to be writing here. These two factors I left blank, those are the stuff that we're going to be guessing and checking. We want two numbers that will multiply to our C value, A times C, but A is 1. And then we want those same two numbers to add to this B value. Moving on to step number 4, right now you should have a number on top with the dot and the number on the bottom with the plus. Once you have that, moving on to step number 5 here, you're going to list the factors of A times C. Again, A is 1, C, for example, is -5, going off of this example here. So 1 times -5 is still -5, so therefore I am going to write -5 here. My B value, my middle term here is -4. Always take the symbol in front of it. So in this case, I'm writing -4. You're going to identify two numbers that multiply to AC, which is -5, but add to B, which is -4. So we're going to list out the factors of -5. So taking this one here, here's our multiplication, here's our addition. So the multiplication, what are numbers that multiply to -5? I know 1 times -5 is -5. And I also know that -1 times 5 is -5. Those are the only two things that can multiply to a -5. So now I'm guessing which one it is. Because not only do I need it equal to -5, I need to add these two numbers to see which one's going to give me a -4. 1 plus -5 is in fact -4. -1 plus 5 is a +4. So this one here does not work. This one works. So that means my factors are -1 and +5. Just kidding, what am I doing? This one here. So +1 and -5. Too many 1s and 5s, lost track. So write out as GCF times your factors. So once you have found your factors here and your A value is 1, you're going to write out your answer. I'm going to put a box here for your answer. If there was a GCF, you would write it out in front. In this case, we did not have a GCF, so then I'm just going to write my two bubbles. You're going to write your variable. In this case, our variable was x. Then I'm going to take my first number, which is plus 1. Then I'm going to take my second number, which is a minus 5, and this would be my answer or my factored form of the given equation or the given expression. Let's do examples. Got some 3 examples for us to do. Step number 1 is to identify, and step number 1 is to factor out GCF. Do I have a GCF? I have a 1, a 7, and a 10. There's nothing in common with it between a 7 and a 10 and a 1 besides 1, but that doesn't really help us. So we move on. Step number 2 is identify the leading coefficient. Do I have a number out in front? No. So we're good. We move on. We're going to draw a big X. So let's draw it off to the side here. Here's my dot. Here's my plus. Since this is 1, 1 times 10 is 10. And then we take our B value here and just write it here. In this case, it is a positive 7, so you can choose to put a plus if you want, or you can just leave it out. After this, we're going to see what our factors of 10 are, two numbers that add to 7 but multiply to 10. So 5 times 2 is 10. Negative 5 times negative 2 is 10. 1 times 10 is 10. Negative 1 times negative 10 is also positive 10. Now it's kind of guessing and checking right now. That's why we call it the guess and check method. But we need to see which of these two numbers add to give me 7. So negative 1 plus negative 10 is a negative 11. So that doesn't work. 1 plus 10 is positive 11. That doesn't work. Negative 5 plus negative 2, that gives me a negative 7. So close, but we need this to be positive. So that doesn't work. We're hoping, fingers crossed, it's this one. 5 plus 2 is 7. So I'm going to write 5 and 2. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 plus 2 is 7. So now we're going to write our bubbles. Our variable is x, so I'm going to write an x here and here. And then we take our factors, which was 5 and a positive 2. There was no GCF, so I'm going to leave it. And here are our factored form. Moving on to example number 2. Again, step number 1, GCF, do I have one? I have a 1, a negative 4, and a 3. There's nothing common between those. I did already mention that I do have a 1 here, so we can continue with the guess and check method. Here's our x, here's our dot, here's our addition. 1 times 3 is 3, and we have a negative 4 for our middle term. Again, things that multiply to 3 but add to negative 4. 3 times 1 is 3. Negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. I'm going to choose to stop here because I already see it. Negative 3 plus negative 1 is a negative 4. So then therefore we know our factors are negative 3 and negative 1. There was no GCF, so I'm going to write out my bubbles here. My variable was x. And my two factors were negative 3 and negative 1. Moving on to our last example. I have a 6, a 12, and a 6. So I do know we can pull out a 6 because 6 divided by 6 is 1. So I have n squared. 6 divided by 12 is 2. 6 divided by 6 is 1. So that means this here, this 6, is our greatest common factor. So I need to remember not to forget it. I need to remember not to forget it. I need to remember to place it in our answer. Now that we've taken out the GCF, notice that our leading coefficient in this bubble is 1. So I'm going to do the guess and check method, but only for the things inside this bubble. So we have 1 times 1 is 1. 2 is our center term. Again, we want to add at the bottom and multiply at the top. 1 times 1 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So we're going to have 1 and 1 are our factors. I'm going to bring down the GCF so I don't forget it. Here's my first bubble. Here's my second bubble. My factors are positive 1 and a positive 1. All right, beautiful people, this wraps up the video lesson for factoring trinomials when your leading coefficient is 1. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!